What's happening, everyone? It's Jeff, Second Chance Podcast. Up next, we've got David Smith, and David's a friend of mine. It's a police officer friend. Um, he's going to talk to us about his journey through just some self discovery and some really positive work that he's done and his completion of the project, which is one of 𝐬𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐼𝐻 brainchilds that is just a men's empowerment 72-hour event. And David is going to share with us his takeaways and how that program has really set him on a new path. Um, Great episode. Let me know what you think. Appreciate you sharing and reach out. Let me know what direction. And if we're headed in the right direction, I'd like to hear that. If there's another direction or another path that we should think about, I'm all ears. So thank you for listening. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And let me know what you think about the episode. Thank you. Welcome back to the Second Chance Podcast with Jeff Robertson. Excited. As you hear me start a lot of my episodes, I'm always excited to talk to my guest. And my next guest is someone who's going to really resonate with me. It's going to be a great conversation. I'm excited to share it with everyone. Our guest today is someone who has faced the front lines of both law enforcement and personal transformation. David Smith is a 13-year police officer who spent 7 of those years on the SWAT team, navigating some of the most challenging times in modern policing, from Ferguson to George Floyd and the impact of COVID. But what sets David apart isn't just his career in uniform, it's his journey on self-discovery and resilience. After battling burnout, frustration, and the limiting belief that the job was his entire identity, David turned his life around. He graduated from the Modern Day Night Project, where he broke free from self sabotaging behaviors and reignited his emotional, physical, and spiritual health. Today, David is a dedicated speaker and leader, passionate about helping first responders and others break through their own barriers, rediscover their self worth, and live the fulfilling lives they've always wanted. David just doesn't talk about resilience, he lives it. And today, he's here to share his powerful story and offer strategies to us to build resilience, overcome burnout, and create a growth mindset that can take us to new heights. Welcome, David Smith. How are you?
Thanks, Jeff. I'm doing awesome. I'm glad to be here. Definitely appreciate the opportunity to share my story and chat a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, man. I got to for folks. Me and David's met previous briefly. I would say we was in the room for about 16 hours total, but our interactions probably could be summed up in just a brief moments of getting to know one another. So I'm excited to lean in and learn just more about you, your career, and you're going to speak to me. You're going to speak to that person in 1998, 2003 that was a police officer that I wish I probably would have heard, or I probably heard it a lot. I wish I'd have listened to a David Smith and where you're at in your journey right now, because it probably would have saved me a lot of headaches. But I appreciate you. But tell me, what was the turning point? 13-year career, SWAT, all those things. What was the turning point in your career? Hang on, David. I don't want to overlook something. You 13 years in law enforcement, 7 years in SWAT. You've lived and seen, but you're probably one of your coolest titles and one of the best titles is you're a dad as well. So you
100%.
don't only balance all these things we're getting ready to talk about. You're also a dad, and I think I don't want to overlook the fact that you've got um, that's a big role in your
Yeah, thanks for
life.
that. It's definitely a driving force for sure,
Yeah.
100%.
Um, what was the turning point in your career that made you realize you needed to make a change?
So it's really, when I think about that question, it's hard to define a single moment because everything's a journey. In a lot of ways, it's still a journey. Um, for me, when I came off of SWAT, I came off of SWAT knowing that I was leaving a team, that I cared about. It wasn't a bad situation or anything. I came off because I was having a second kid and I wanted to spend more time with my family. I did not want to be called out in the middle of the night anymore and then be tired all day and be around family with that, mindset and stuff. I didn't want to deal with it. So I knew I'd had some success on SWAT, and I looked at it as coming out on top, and I knew there'd be a transition. And with the benefit of hindsight, was when
Yeah.
I realized that I was on a downward trajectory after I had come off. Now that was coming. I came off in May of 21, so that was off the heels of George Floyd and COVID, which was, every industry was affected by COVID. And then the George Floyd stuff, same as Ferguson, is just the dynamic it kind of creates, this negative environment. Now, our community was definitely super supportive during that time, and we definitely weren't largely affected as a department either. However, it's the attitude as a nation,
Yeah.
always short-staffed, for many reasons besides just that. But so I eventually came across the Modern Day Night Project, and that is what really um, created in me the belief in myself, or learning that I was limiting myself through that. And so, if I were to pick a single turning point, it definitely would be preparing for and attending and graduating the Modern Day Night Project.
So tell me real quick, for our listeners who don't know about the Modern Day Night Project, tell us about that and kind of what goes on into it, and then walk us through your discovery and finding it. I think that's just
Got
as
it.
cool too.
It's a good story. So the Modern Day Night Project is a 75-hour men's development program. And when you say 75 hours, it's every hour of the 75. And the flashy vids are make it look like Bud's Hell Week, which it's not. It's definitely not what those guys do. I don't want to downplay any of that, but it's difficult. It's a difficult experience, and it's a lot of physical activity. You'd probably not be able to complete it if you're not physically fit. Many have not because for that reason. And what is not advertised as much is the deep self work that you go through when going through that experience. And it's not all just physical. There's some classroom portion, but they dive into faith, family, fitness, finances, fulfillment. So it's diving into all of that is the quick rundown of the project. It's actually pretty coincidental because on our day of recording right now, tomorrow starts the very last
That's
project class, class 20. And it's a sad thing to see it go, but it's definitely changed my life and has changed many lives. I've made so many friends throughout that, and to have like-minded men to connect with and be in community with is amazing.
For
So,
those, it was a brainchild of 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐿, who's got connected
yep.
with through Fit Body Boot Camp, the franchise. David and I didn't know this when we were together, and he was talking about it. And I was like, "Oh, I know all the players. I never did the project, but I know
Yep.
all the faces from Steve. Just have been around those folks, and
Yeah.
we were kind of there when I was in the franchise when Class One popped up. That's Bedros. He identifies what he thinks is a problem, and he goes all in figuring out a way to become a solution. And I think to build off of the project so it doesn't get overlooked, but the project was it also kind of spawned the Squire Project, was as a
Yep.
kids mentoring. Darnell Fortente or Fortno.
Yep.
It was on the podcast as well. He's a project, and then he ended up
Daryl.
buying. Yep, he runs the. He's got a Squire project that he runs out of Houston, Texas, as well. So that's kind of the whole premise of it. But you're in on the East Coast, and those guys are all on the West Coast. And there's a moment or
Yep.
whatever that you discover this
Yes.
this project. What does that look like?
Yes. So, during that time frame after I had coming off SWAT, I was uh breaking policy.
Yep.
I had brought up Facebook on my work laptop, admittingly, and it was one of those evenings. I was working, not a lot going on. So I was trying to, see what was going on. Now I look up to a bunch of guys online, and looking up to a lot of the former SEALs in that community. Definitely been inspiring to me. So I knew of Jason Redman, and I knew that he was local. He lived in the city that I work at. So I had followed him for a long time. And I was in the middle of his book actually during that time. So I was paying closer attention to him. And he brought up a live stream. He was promoting his new book at the time, The Point Man Planner. And he was giving away items every like half an hour, like books and stuff here and there. He was having his friends on the live stream and chatting. And I just had kind of had it on the background. And I was texting the number, get off the X, see if I can win a book or something. So it was 10:40 in that evening, and he said, I'd only watched like an hour of it, I guess. I hadn't seen the beginning. And he said, it's 5 more minutes till a grand giveaway called the Modern Day Night Project. Text the word project. So I texted the word project and then I looked it up. And I'm watching the promo videos. I'm like, this looks insane. Like I didn't even know what to think of it uh first looking at it, except that it looked like something I might want to do because I like to challenge myself. And it looked so crazy that I probably wouldn't do it
Yeah.
without looking any further. At that point, I didn't know what all it would entail. So his wife on the live stream was like, "Oh, the winner's a local number," like as I'm looking at it. So I look back at my text, it says winner. And so I'd won a spot to go to the Modern Day Night Project.
That's awesome.
So it was I had to discover more about it, of course, and I realized that I had to decide if I needed this. Like this is an intense experience. Do I need this right now? And it was an overwhelming feeling that I did need it. I knew I'd come off SWAT. I knew I didn't have like a lot of drive to do much during that time. I was on a steady decline. Like you could say I was happy in the general sense. I had my wife and kids and had a good job, but I had outside of that, in my church there was not a lot of meaning and something that I think being on SWAT had brought, being around that high level of individuals, which is what attracted me to SWAT in the first place, was to be put myself around, the best, what I
Yeah.
saw as the best on our department. Like I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to learn from them. So I definitely saw a lot of that in the project, and I realized, I do need this. And what was transformative for me was deciding I didn't need it for anybody else. I needed
Yeah.
it for me. And especially after graduating the project, a huge defeat of the limiting belief portion is that I I earned that seat at the table. Uh nobody else did that for me. I didn't do it for anybody. I did it for me. So in an essence, like not to sound cliche, but really took away from that learning how to appreciate myself, to love myself, to not prove myself to anybody else like I'd been doing my whole career. Uh,
I
I
want to
proved
qualify
myself
that,
to myself.
but I also want to hear, and this is my curiosities are getting the best of me here. All right, because I
Mhm.
am you're speaking to a lot of people, especially when it comes to that
Yeah.
tip of the spear. So when we were talking earlier about, hey, I'd like to branch out into the audience, like those high performers, typically, like if you like being around high performers, you're heading in the right direction. SWAT
Yep.
stuff I got to do, like elite task force type work. So that's you always typically find some of your just high performers, guys who want to get it done, girls who want to get whatever. So
100%.
here's when you left SWAT. I'm trying to give everybody the picture of you. Did you feel like you lost your purpose, Are you kicking the can? Are you tired? Are you back in a desk? Are you an office guy? Are you missing the call outs and the camaraderie? What is going on with
So
you?
the yeah, I see what you're saying. The SWAT on my department is a collateral duty, so
Yeah,
we still had a primary duty during that whole time I was on, and really coming off, I didn't miss most of it.
yeah,
I didn't miss the call outs. I didn't miss the training. I I missed the van ride from
yeah,
the brief
yeah.
to the door.
It's a van.
That was where it was
Hmm.
at. And
Yeah.
I still miss that. Um, but in the totality of things, it wasn't worth staying for sure. Does that answer your question? I'm trying to remember
Yes.
everything you asked. Okay.
No, that's like
Roger
that's
that.
for
Yeah.
we're talking about a little bit of this, and I want you to I want us to say because here's a little bit maybe of where what rank are you as your SWAT, Dave? Are you lieutenant? Or are you still?
So
Um,
I got promoted to sergeant when I was on the team. So the last
yeah,
2 years I was on the team, I was a team leader on the team. So I stayed a sergeant when I came off, and I continued in my primary duties, except I just didn't have SWAT to think about. So I didn't have the gear anymore.
yeah,
I didn't have training to go to. It was just come to work and handle the streets,
yeah,
and which is fine. But that life of uh, maybe it's the right term, the quiet life of desperation, feeling like, man, I had something and now it's gone. Which I wanted in the
yeah.
first place, but still, nevertheless, like it it definitely hit me a little harder than I thought.
A lot of times, and I struggle with this, and I have some good conversations with folks. Like sometimes you work so hard to get something in your local department that you don't. It's hard to let that go. When, especially when you're
Hmm.
accepted in it or whatever. But it also maybe sounds like you're growing up and you're a dad and there's all these lifetime like you're taking steps and what in everybody else's world is a positive direction for David going home take care of his kids doing all these things but from the sergeant you're kind of like in that area of where you're leading but you're not you're leading but you're not so you're in a kind of mixing bowl and you're trying to figure some of it out sometimes is that kind of the way that's the way some of my thoughts were is that any similarities there or
As far as similarities, as far as
just
my
trying to
life on the
just like
team,
going
or
from sergeant coming from just finding that leadership to
Mhm.
where you're comfortable leading, getting into that lieutenant role. Because a lot of times guys are like, I'm going to be a sergeant forever. I don't want to get promoted
Right.
up. I don't want this leadership. I don't want that. And so you're in this area to where you want to go up, but you're hesitant because you're lacking this and confidence. And it seems like the modern just knowing people and kind of knowing just stuff you had shared with me about you and just where you were as a dad and as an employee and as an officer sometimes we struggle with getting to that leadership
Mm.
mindset. So maybe the modern day night really helped that because it gave you that.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely helped me learn to like the definitely one of the lessons I took away was when it comes to leadership.
Yeah,
Like I cannot lead anybody if I can't lead myself.
yeah,
So I really learned like, okay, now that I actually respect David Smith, now I've proved myself to myself. I can lead myself in the right direction so that I can give my best self to everybody else, to my family,
yeah,
to my wife and kids, to the officers that work for me, to everyone around me. So that was a huge, huge lesson in leadership that I took away from the project was if I can't live my life in congruency with my highest self, then I need to give that best version of myself to everyone around me. So it's
yeah.
it's been
I,
transformative.
No,
I think I would have been a better leader on the team if I would have had that mindset.
yeah,
Because I was just kind of getting comfortable, honestly, when I came off the team with being in that role because so many, so many on the team had even decades more time on the team than I. So, which is fine. I mean, it's not like we didn't get along, but to be put in that leadership position, it's a lot to take on.
yeah,
As a younger guy, as and then of course looking back after the project, somebody who didn't quite believe in himself the way that somebody at the top should, you know? So, like I said, I was trying to prove myself to everyone instead of to me.
yeah.
So
It's
that
powerful,
was a
man.
huge,
It's a
yeah, it's
heck of a
so
moment.
powerful.
Yeah, it
It
is. Like
really is.
you, we grow. I grew up people first, like everyone else, and I had this moment, David. It was a similar moment. Mine was not through any means of the project, but there was just a point in time when I was kind of like like you. I was like, I have to really focus on me and my stuff, and finding some forgiveness in my and forgiving
Hmm.
myself, and just
Yes.
all these little things that I needed to do before I could feel comfortable helping again. And I think we make that mistake because we're first responders. You know, I own in a gym, people come in and
Hmm.
they remind me of first responders. And what'll happen is they'll come in, they'll get a good routine going, and then sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, my husband is sick. I'm going to have to drop my membership so I can go take care of him." I'm like, "Well, that's you not taking care of you to take care of someone else. I totally get it. How can we work us into your schedule?" And they throw their hands up, and we
Hmm.
do that as well as we put public safety folks and law enforcement will push everybody else's problems to the forefront and never deal with their own, and they'll go
Oh
screw up
man.
something, they'll get mad at their supervision, right, for it being disciplined, and they'll carry that. And you probably know people
Yes.
that you had a conversation with today that they're bringing up something that's remember 7 years ago I got rid of, and they haven't forgive that, and like
Yeah.
it's we
Yeah,
torment
you're speaking my
ourselves.
language.
Yeah,
You're definitely speaking my language. It it's a couple things come to mind. So like I definitely was that guy.
yeah,
So and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for SWAT. Um and I think a large part of why how I realized that the project was right for me was being on SWAT all those years, being around the high performers. Um there was one in particular that was is always preaching on the team the be better lifestyle, which I think had a lot of influence on me. However, it kind of not to say I didn't listen, but I didn't actualize, what he was saying until I had that experience in the project. And then, yeah, I just lost what else I was going to say.
that's
But
good. I think the other thing
that's
you
you.
found
Oh,
some outside
yes.
influence,
Oh,
right? Or go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Definitely some outside influence, but it's the journey has brought me to a point where I am recognizing that in other officers, not not I mean even outside, like, men at my church and stuff like that, that in first responders in a profession of public service, serving others, why is it so difficult for us to think about serving ourselves?
Yeah,
Like that's a question I've been noodling on for the past year or two. Uh because and I've kind of realized that everybody needs this catalyst and it's different for every single person. So, and I know I'm diving down
no, you're good.
the whole
Listen,
first responder
EAP.
wellness.
There was we didn't really have an EAP. I had friends that had EAP, which is employee assistance, and it
Mhm.
was readily available for police officers and highly recommended. Like if you need help, call this number. And
Yeah,
I had back then people were really scared to call that number. And then internally is sometimes
still are.
when you spoke about just something might be bothering you, if that made it up to the chain, you was afraid of losing you was just afraid of losing your
Yep.
momentum. You're afraid of getting setbacks or um, you know,
There's still a lot of that.
right? So you just like you're afraid to talk about something that might be bothering you because listen, cops they carry a lot of debt as well, and there's a lot of stress in their
Oh
lives
man.
financially because
Yeah.
they have a lifestyle that they're trying to live and they're
I'm glad you
working
brought that up.
overtimes.
After the project, because we talk about finances in the project.
Yeah,
And so right after that, I put forth a plan, and in 6 months I paid off like 20 grand of credit card debt.
say,
And so that catalyst like helped me, alleviate that burden because so many are just coming to work every day and they know in the back of their mind, they're subconscious that they're in debt.
yeah,
They probably have a lot of debt.
got to be
And
here.
trading your time for dollars isn't fixing it.
Yeah,
How they're spending their money isn't fixing it. So there's so many things that that could be a catalyst. I mean, there is this officer on our department right now, and I love talking about him because his transformation is so visible. Um, he lost 75 pounds,
heck yeah,
and I hit him up. It's like, man, dude, what happened? Like, this is amazing. He's like, oh well, it wasn't that. I signed up for a Dave Ramsey program and he paid off a ton of debt, got a lot of finances straight, which led him to some of the popular like men
yep,
influencers out there, which led him like to apply that discipline elsewhere. And now like every time I see him, he's got a huge smile on his face.
yeah.
So like that can happen for so many people. For me being the project, for him being that, like everybody has this catalyst that can launch them into living a better life.
You got
So,
your faith back in you. You got right
mhm.
with your finances. And what about the other F bombs that the project teaches? How was you with your fitness before and after?
So to go into the project, I knew I needed to cut some. I was like, I cannot go through it right now.
Too
Let's
far
put the
away from the
date
police
back a little
academy.
bit. Yeah.
Too many years away from the academy.
Well, honestly, it's a decade of a beer every night,
Yeah,
and eating out every day. And which I everyone knows that's not the way to go. But that self-sabotage where you just give in to what's easy, what feels good. And so going into the project, I signed up for a coaching program and I lost 20 pounds before going in.
good day.
And I've maintained that a bit and uh I've stayed steady in the gym.
Good.
Now it's funny you bring that up too, because today is day one of a new program called Fit Responder. It's pretty
Yeah,
big on social media, and so I've just started to reach some new goals. Now, since the project, like I've set other goals. I wanted to do a Spartan trifecta weekend,
yeah,
so I ended up doing that, uh, and even still pushing past these limiting beliefs earlier this year, I decided that I had told a friend a couple years ago, we had ran a half marathon together, and the marathon runners, kept running. And I told my friend, "You'll never catch me doing that." And this was after the project. And that just sat with me so bad. Like, why was I scared of doing a marathon? So I went ahead and registered for one a few months later, and this March I ran the marathon. I
yeah.
finished it. Yeah,
Heck yeah.
so I'm definitely been pushing goals and stuff. So the fitness has also been huge. That F bomb, like to keep that steady, because there's so many things that fitness applies to, like when you're talking about your mental health,
Yeah.
your decision making, your focus, all that stuff. It's huge.
And then the last one, and then we'll move on. Kind of getting into the
Yeah.
mindset shifts is what the question. I had a
Hmm.
question kind of right, but the f bombs of the project kind of help people understand how your
Hmm.
mindset shifted before and after. That's kind of all I was going through.
Yep.
family David before
Yep.
project, family David after? What is, what are some realizations that the project gave you from not only dad, but husband David?
Yeah. So it's all I'll preface it, it's always a work in progress.
Yeah,
So, but what I brought away from the project was that is my time, my presence. Like, are we actually dating still? We're not just roommates? Like, are we dating? It seems so obvious, to say it out loud, but like there's so many that, they haven't been on a date with their spouse in 6 months or something. Just because, and the excuses are numerous, sure. But when you create this intention, one of the best questions that I took away from the project was, everyone has a calendar, right? Paper calendar on your phone. Like, bring out your calendar, look at all the stuff you have going on, all your work, all your activities, but you don't have your time with your family in there.
yeah.
That's not in your calendar. The most important thing. So things like that have been super, super powerful. And it boils down to even just like getting off your phone for a couple hours when you get home and actually sit down and be present with your family, with your kids. Don't bring your phone to the dinner table. Like little things like that. Your time management has just been hugely impactful for my family. So it's been good. And like I said, it's always a work in progress.
I can remember I was, I can't tell you the year, but Chino Hills and sitting inside of Fit Body headquarters conference room is where I remember hearing, and we all had that hard conversation about dating your wife. And I
Mhm.
remember just sitting there saying, "Hey, on Wednesday or Thursday, just figure it out. Where this is non-negotiable. It's going to be our date night, and we're going to put this on the calendar, and we're going to." And we just like, soon as we started talking about it in the room, I was like, "Crap, I am not. I'm definitely doing
Mhm.
that. I'm not going to fall in that trap." So that was like that. Was something that I had picked up, just the way that we said it. Like, hey, keep dating your wife, don't, or your spouse, right? For the ladies that's listening,
Yep.
is making sure that you put that on the calendar.
100%.
Good. What was you? And you added there's four F bombs is what we used to cover, but you said a fifth one.
Fulfillment.
Fulfillment. Yeah, that's kind of like the
Yeah.
bonus.
Yeah, it is. And it's honestly not even talked a lot about. It's kind of
Yeah,
like expected that the four F-bombs will bring the fifth one, fulfillment. But I
yeah,
also think we need to be intentional with that. And I've been diving into that a lot lately because that's a large part of what I'm trying to do with launching my own company for the first responder wellness is, how do you find that fulfillment outside of the job, you know? And what is your meaning? What why are you here on this earth? What are your core values?
yeah,
W- what brings you, what drives you every day? And so I think I've told you about the other program that I'm involved in with Apogee.
yeah,
And so even this very month, one of the challenges that we dived into on our one of our calls was right along this lines of fulfillment and what is fulfilling you? What is your meaning? And it's a harsh question, and many may be thrown aback. But why haven't you killed yourself today? Like to dive deep and discover the answer to that question is is insanely powerful.
yeah,
What are you living your life for? Everyone knows it's not the job. The job's going to replace you as soon as you're gone. You know, what are you going to do when you're suspended, when you retire, when it inevitably comes to a close? Like, what are you going to do? This can't be your whole identity. So I know I kind of got off on a tangent there, but
no, no, that's
that's
where we
that's
needed
a
to go.
lot that
That's
comes to mind for
no,
sure.
no, you're like you're here's where we are. Like you kind of hit what
Mhm.
I was going because we were in that we're standing in the middle of that four-way intersection, right? Of just practical ways officers can nurture their relationships, their health, and wealth while balancing the demands of the job. Is there
Yeah.
any tips that just some practical ways that you're doing it now through every day? And that's the hard part. Is
Yeah.
is when you leave the project, you get this coming home from camp vibe, right? And you have this whole thing.
Yes.
Now you have to maintain
Yes.
it every day, David. So when
Hmm.
you got your new program, which is powerful, we're going to talk about that. Make sure that everybody knows that exists because you know.
Hmm.
But what are you doing every day that helps nurture these relationships, taking care of your health, and then putting
Yep.
making just wealth a priority for you?
So there's, man, you covered so many wide range of topics there
Break it
that
down.
definitely it definitely needs to be hit every day. And that's one of the so I knew I needed to after the project because what you said is very true. I knew that there's that honeymoon period that, graduated, hoorah, this is fantastic. Like I'm the best, whatever. And then it's inevitably like with anything, it's going to taper off and everyone backslides, which is fine. You just got to know the steps to take to keep going and to make the right choices every day. So I knew that I needed to surround myself with these like-minded people,
There you
and
go.
I came. I needed that direction. I knew I couldn't just do it myself. I needed to be around other men that are also trying to be the best versions of themselves every day. So found Apogee Strong, and that has really helped me. And honestly, I'm on month 21 right now of 24 months of growth. Every month, a new topic and diving into new challenges, and it's changed my life, uh, for sure. So the everyday part is that the habits. Every day is
Yeah.
the habits. You have to hit the habits every day. And there's so many different ones for sure, but we kind of break it down into ten habits. So you have to hit your fitness every day. Well, whether that be push-ups before you hit the shower or going to the gym, going on a run, like your fitness has to be hit every single day. And then your finances too. If you're checking your finances for 30 seconds, like you need to know you're just being intentional with it. You're able to catch stuff, you're thinking about it. You're like, man, maybe I could tweak this and do that a little bit better. So many things like that. I mean, you got journaling, words or notes of affirmation to your kids and your family, your spouse, reaching out to a friend every day and intentionally. So these habits just bring so much intention to your day. That's how I keep on the path. One of them is studying something every day. So this year specifically, every morning I I read the Bible and I journal and I plan out my day. So now I know I've I've had some intentional growth and between the study and the journaling and then planning out my day, I know like how I'm going to use my time. Where am I going to fit in fitness today? Where am I going to fit in time with my family today? Wh- Even down to your nutrition. Where am I going to fit in lunch and
Yeah.
dinner and my snacks? So there's so many avenues when it comes down to like, okay, what are you doing every day? What do you like? What can you do to keep yourself on the path? There's so many different things, and one last thing I'll say on this question is the challenge-based lifestyle has been hugely impactful for me. So with Apogee, we're challenging ourselves every month to do these certain things. And so like and it's hard things. It's taking the hard route. Not the easy way. The easy thing would be to go sit on my couch and play video
Yep.
games and to drink a beer. But the hard thing to do is to sit down and ask myself why I haven't killed myself today.
Yeah.
Which is an insane way to think about it, and that's just this month specifically. But um,
It's
Like we did
deep.
75 hard, like as one of the challenges was 75 hard. So there's stuff like that. And so yeah, it's deep, but we have to think this way. Like if we don't want to be on that downward trajectory, we want to be on that 1% better trajectory. So by the end of the year, we're 365% better. Think about where we'll be in 10 years. I tell people all the time, like, I'm 35. I can't wait until I'm 45 because what I'm going to accomplish
Yeah.
in that amount of time is going to be insane. It's going to be awesome. So it just gives me chills thinking about it.
It's
So
good, man.
it's long.
You're out of the rat race. You're out of the grind. It gives you you step back and you have this new view of life, and you're able to you're a puzzle maker,
Mhm.
and you're just moving the puzzle pieces to where you need them. You
Yep.
mentioned some of your just burnout and self-sabotaging behaviors. What's some advice that you have for others that are facing similar struggles just in high pressure jobs, whether it be law enforcement, firefighters, that CEO of the boardroom, the different folks that's going to come into the Second Chance podcast.
Yeah.
You know, what advice do you have for those folks?
A huge thing for me is recognition, and intention. So if you don't recognize that, like, hey, I'm not looking forward to going into work right now. Like I am I'm not doing traffic stops because I just want to sit here and be lazy. Like so a huge thing is recognition, like to know what burnout is and to like that's the first step in resilience. It is to recognize where you're at because you don't have a path forward if you don't know where you're at. So and then is learning. So you don't know what you don't know. Like I didn't know so many things through finances, through fitness. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. Um, After the project, I researched a lot of real estate stuff, and I had no idea that I could use the equity in my house to go buy another house.
Yeah,
I just didn't know. Uh, so so yeah, I think that might answer your question. But
that's good. It's
yeah, burnout specifically.
you're just speaking like
Yeah,
your friends are going to listen to this, right? There's
yeah,
folks that's going to hear. There's going to be the folks that like the people that we quietly pray for at night. Just say, man, I really hope they figure it out because they take for granted that you do care, and they're struggling just the same. And um, to be able to find a turnaround moment where you are in your career and you are in
mhm,
your life will just that's going to propel you forward in so many ways. Inner circle before, inner circle now. Has that changed your influences? Those five influences that you let into your life. Has that changed any?
yeah, it definitely has. I feel like my closest friends are not even local right now.
Yeah.
We're on Zoom all the time, and we're always texting. Yeah, I got a text this morning from a friend in one of our group texts about how he blew up on his kids and his wife, and how, he talked to his wife about it, and now he's beating himself up over it. And so these are the type of conversations that I'm having now. And when we do get up in person, it's deep emotional talks. It's what's the right word? Like we're talking about real estate. We're talking about our wives and our kids and our struggles. We're being vulnerable with each
Yeah.
other.
There you
You
go.
know, before, and nothing against my friends. They're still my friends, but they're not really my inner circle anymore.
Yeah.
Because when we hang out, it's drinking. It's let's talk about other people's lives. Let's talk about go sports team go.
Yeah.
you know, uh talking about football and everything, which is fine for a time, sure, but like so many have devoted their lives to it, become almost religious to it. Like I don't want to devote my life to watching somebody else be successful. I want to be
Yeah.
that successful person, and I want to talk to a friend who is also trying to be that successful person. And the most important key piece of it all is my closest friends now. We all want to help others do the same thing.
Yeah.
We want to help others along this journey uh, to become the best version of themselves. So that's the difference between the inner circles now. It's so that's who I choose to surround myself with.
It's you touched on vulnerability,
Hmm.
and I think that there's a few things that I'll walk people through myself. One of them's forgiveness of myself
Hmm.
and their selves, and the other one is just that vulnerability and being able to just embrace it and understand that it's okay. But what role has, and you touched on it, but you know, how do you encourage others to become vulnerable and embrace that?
It's it's a difficult bridge to cross, and I think everyone has their own journey to get there. But it starts with the little things. It starts with talking about like, hey, I'm not feeling good about this call,
Yeah,
you know, or I I'm not like, man, I'm so upset today. Why am I upset? Oh, it's because something one of my kids did. Well, that's why there's people around to talk about it. And honestly, I don't care who you talk to about it. There's so much power in just the spoken word, speaking about it. I had this conversation literally 2 days ago. Someone had asked me like, which is the typical cop question I'm sure you've heard is, what's the craziest thing you've seen? Um, which for me, I always think of the death that I've seen,
yeah,
And so I was diving into that, with a few friends, and it was I brought up the power of the spoken word. I was like, well, so many just keep it in. And it that's if it doesn't bother you, that's fine. Like if it doesn't bother you, but you need to recognize when it does. And for me, it didn't bother me for the longest time until it did. You know?
yeah.
So I mean, I told them the story, and I'm open about it too. Uh, is a couple years ago. This was after I think it was after the project. Yeah, it's definitely after the project. The same year, but we had a suicide. Guy blew his head off, and the like month or two later, I woke up at 5 p.m. because sleeping during the day, and I come down the hallway, and my wife is feeding my youngest. Oatmeal mixed with berries like raspberries, strawberries,
Yes,
blueberries, and it's all mixed
yes,
up, and she's loving
yes.
it. And as soon as I turn the corner, I just see the guy's brains on her on her plate. So I'm like, that was definitely not normal,
Yeah,
you know? So it takes strength. It's a hard, difficult thing to do, to talk about things that are affecting you, but um it's just, we touched on it briefly, but doing the hard things over easy things that you think it might be easy to hold it in and not talk about it, that's going to make your life significantly harder. So much harder that you might go down that dangerous path of making permanent decisions off of temporary feelings,
yeah,
you know? So if you do the hard thing now, which is talking about it, then your life is going to be significantly easier later. So that's yeah, that's my answer.
that's good, man. Like
Yeah.
that's and yeah, I'll coattail with you is but sometimes changing who you talk to,
Yep.
and not going back to that same trusted source, because what happens sometimes, especially if it's police officer and police officer, friend on friend, is if we're not careful, our we become enablers, and there's two
Yeah.
parties, or there's a group of friends or
100%.
whatever, and then we start our crazy. And I've said this a couple times in different settings, where no matter whatever, every now and then just invite someone new in and let them evaluate whether your conversations are sane and your conversations are making sense, and you're not in this bad. Because sometimes when you start dealing with the worst of the worst, is your conversations are centered around that. And I remember just a couple times when I've had, my wife is a good example of someone who walked in and was like, well, wait a minute, no, hey, whoa, y'all need to go, no, y'all shouldn't talk for a while.
Mm.
Y'all
Yeah.
said, you guys have y'all been around together. Y'all been around each other too long. Y'all need to just take a break and go, because your version of what's sanity or what's sane in reality is two different things. And so
Yep.
changing
Yeah, that's
those
true.
that up. To
Yeah,
the
100%.
officers, speak to the officers who feel their identity is tied solely to their job. That was me.
Hmm.
And um they're struggling to find purpose outside of their career. How do we help them, or how can you step in and help those folks?
It's well, yeah, I've touched on that too, with the recognition of like, okay, if you ask your question to yourself, what in my life brings me meaning? If it's only the job, then that's an obvious one. But others, it's more subtle. Like they think they do a lot, outside of work, but lo and behold, everything they're doing outside of work is with their coworkers.
Yeah,
So now when something happens, if there's that suspension or something crazy happens, which it has happened, no one is above that. So when that happens, all of a sudden you're probably not hanging out with those people anymore. Now you're not going to work, you're not hanging out with the friends you thought you were your friends. And it's a harsh reality that at the end of the day, we may be just coworkers. We may be. Um, yeah, sure. There's definitely some lifelong friends that I've met on the department, and many have. But the ones who think that you think might be your friends, they're probably just coworkers. And
yeah.
when you leave, they're not going to talk to you.
Mm-mm.
So that this recognition of where you're at, like challenging yourself, like I've talked about this challenging this challenge-based lifestyle. Like, okay, let me sit down, let me define my values. What do I value in life? I guarantee you it's not going to be your job. Um, it's going to be those closest to you, your family. It's going to be your own life, stuff like that. And finding your meaning outside of it. There's so much damage, I think, that, when you talk about like identity, the thin blue line identity, the thin or just the thin line identity, because talking to all the first responders here, um, there's it can be damaging to wrap yourself up in that for everything that I just said, you know. So I think that I found myself serving on the department better once I found my meaning and purpose and values outside of the department. So,
I went in at 15 and I came
mm,
out like at 35. 15 as a
yeah.
EMT. I didn't know how to read a ruler. I didn't know, if it didn't involve lights and sirens. I didn't know how to do it, and I tell people that now. I'm like, man, just find a hobby, find a group, go do something outside. Go work on a project, just something, right?
Yep.
Just outside of that badge and gun, or that fire hose and mask, or that gear bag. Um, and to just really try to find and just a well-rounded thing. So fitness
Yeah.
first, like absolutely. If you're a police officer, man, it's and anything about an EMS, you're a high performer, and you got there's a standard. So like just taking a little, even you ain't got to be 30 minutes a day with a pair of tennis shoes on. This is a great start. You don't have to be
Right. Yeah.
doing power cleans and burpees, right? Just something
Well,
that help.
there's even science behind that. If
Yeah,
you go for a 30-minute walk just 3 times a week,
yeah,
like you take your blood before that and your blood after doing that for a month, guarantee you there's gonna be a difference.
yeah. Big
Like you're
difference.
gonna be a healthier individual.
You touch on it, David. Guarding your finances is
Yep.
the most stress I put on myself
Hmm.
was I just didn't know how to manage money. Going and sitting down with someone, not being having that vulnerable moment, and sitting down with
Yeah.
someone and just working through your books and just like, hey, this is how you can clean this up. Whether it's a Dave Ramsey or it might be a David Smith. It's just
Yep.
getting someone because that's unnecessary bullets and an
Yes.
unnecessary gun. It's not take. It's just
Yeah.
having being stressed out over finances will absolutely destroy your mental health.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that was part of it for me, having that debt to pay off. And another thing that I realized is like working the part-time and signing up for overtime, like that leaves no room for anything else. And you're trading your time for dollars, something that Bedros says.
yeah,
One of the key things that I took away from the project, which I really wrestled with this actually, as far as finances go, Bedros, he said it is every American's duty to make as much money as possible.
yeah,
I was like, what? I never thought of it like that. And I wrestled with that. It's like, well, I can only make so much money doing this job. At least that's what I told myself.
yeah.
So I've been on this journey a couple years now of breaking out of this scarcity mindset to
Mm,
this abundance mindset.
hmm.
I used to look at the nice houses in the neighborhoods, going to calls like, oh, that's nice. I'll never have that. You know? Um, so now I'm on a path to to be as wealthy as I can. And another thing that I believe too is you can also still do your calling as a first responder
Yeah,
because I think we're called to this job. You can still be wealthy and do that.
yeah,
There's systems and tools in place that we are not told about. Ways to keep your wealth and grow it. Stuff like it's it's wild. I'll leave that note on just I'd recommend the book The Truth About Taxes
yeah.
by Sean Berscombe. It'll open your mind to all sorts of financial trickery that the ultra wealthy do. Like, why can't anybody else do it? At least that's what Sean is helping bring to the table.
One
So,
of the things I'm working with. I'm working with a mutual friend. You'll know him as it comes out. But I always keep those private. And what I'm working with him on is knowing your worth. And police officers,
mm,
this is exactly what I told him the other night. Like I was like, listen, you go and make like we go through. Hey, what was your highest years as a police officer? And he's doing some tactical, like he's in the mix doing some pretty high speed narcotics work. Um, and like his highest year is with overtime and all the things like 103, right?
mhm,
And then we sit down and I'm like, well, the key to making $100,000 a year is to make 83.33 a month. And I start working him through numbers and I'm like, so write these down. I'm like, write these numbers down. You've already made this money with someone else telling you while you got shot at, while you actually did get shot, while you have done all these things under the stress, you have in the your city and your department, and it's okay. They've told you what you're worth. The bankers and the business owner and the entrepreneurs and this and the other, they don't get shot. They don't do this and they go make
mm,
X, Y, or Z. And this is what they
mm,
do. And this is how money is made. And our public safety folks, David, sometimes is you're blind to how much money's out there because for 13 years now, And in a lot of other cases for him was 20 years. And my friends that are 20, 25, 30 years, someone has told them what they're worth. And when they go,
Oh,
I get
yes.
shot at and I deal with all this crap for 50, $60,000 a year, there's no other money, but by all means, it can't be any other. It's just too much of a gap for me to get there. The time that you
Mm,
spend doing part-time work, we could work on doing some entrepreneurial stuff. We could work on launching a business that solves a problem in your community, and then we
hmm.
can hire staff. We can do all these other things. And the time that you're spending more um, um, in your job, you can come out and take that same amount of time. It's not going to cost you any more time, and you can
Yes,
go and create your own destiny. And we
that's so
people
good.
I don't know that, David. And it's so
You're
I
right.
told this guy, I told this guy, I was like, listen, I have a friend who I always say, I'm like, he's light years ahead of me because he's clicking it off. He's doing his thing. And I'm like, it took me so long in a couple hard conversations with someone to say, your problems, you just don't know what you're worth, Jeff. And I was like, crap. And when they told me that, and then they start like this, I started working on money. Um, Ian Stanley is someone that has mentored our Fit Body franchise, and he's just got some really good stuff on just money mindset work. We
Mm,
did all that and just really trying to change our perspective. Money is not wanting money, wanting wealth is not greed. Money's just an amplifier of who you are. If you're an asshole, you're going to be a bigger asshole with money. If you like to
yep,
help people, watch out because
yep.
you're going to have the means to help. Broke people can't help anyone. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me,
I'm so
um,
glad you said that. Um, about the worth. I'm so glad
yeah,
you said that because that's been part of my journey also is realizing my self-worth and
yeah,
like, well, I'm not really limited to how much my W-2 says
mhm,
I'm worth. I'm worth way more than that.
yeah.
And I'm going to make that happen. Was definitely a huge part of the mindset shift. So that's awesome that you're doing that with him because
It's
and
easier
that's
to
what I
make ten
intend to do
thousand
also.
dollars. It's easier to make $10,000 in new money than it is to save 10,000 of your money. You'll learn that
Yep.
as an entrepreneur. You'll just go through
Yes.
that, and once you figure those out, but then as a police officer, and I work with the guys I work with, I'm like, hey, take your salary because your money's magic. You're used to money coming in. It took twice a month, once a month. Your insurance is paid. It's comfort, all the things, but you're a commodity for your agency, just like you a recruiter would be for a Fortune 500 company or an entrepreneur, and all these things. Is you're still labor and your brain and your assets and your skill set. And we're giving that away sometimes, and that's okay. But I still want everybody to know, like, in order for you to make what you make, tell me what you make a year, divide that by 12. Okay, that's our monthly, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to
Yeah.
take that same amount of money, add 30% to it, that's kind of what you need to make as an entrepreneur. Now let's divide that by 52. All right, this is how much money you got to make per week to make what you make now. And when you break it down like that, and I go, tell me how you spend.
Yeah.
Tell me how this, when you
Mhm.
start realizing the flow of money, then you start saying, well, wait a minute, my buddy mows 2 yards for X number of dollars. He makes this in a week, right? Or he can do this and this. And they start relating. And
Exactly.
then the other thing I do with drug cops is we just use drug dealer math. I'm like, hey, this is we're rolling. This is how many keys. This is how we break it down, right? Um,
Nice.
it's such a it's a light bulb moment when you take their own salary. So I would tell you to do that same thing. Is take that salary
Yeah.
of where you are now with overtime and break that down and say, if I'm going to start a company tomorrow, I have to replace this. All right. And
Hmm.
then when I tell him, the end result is I'm like, if you'll write that number down where you see it every day, once you create that goal, the path will start to reveal itself. You'll
Yeah.
start opportunities will come
Absolutely.
along, and you'll start kind of working toward that. And then for speakers like us and things that we do is how much money you need to make per year. So what that equates in how much you want to get paid per working assignment that you have per week, per month, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of the breakdown on it.
That's
I
really
didn't mean to
good.
steal your time away.
No, that was awesome.
but you got me. I just when you get into that worth thing, man, I come
Mm.
to life because then I'll share with you sometime just that moment of where I was like, what the heck? Why? Um,
Yes.
Real quick, David, we said we was going to
Yeah.
honor about an hour, and it's because you got kids' dinner
Yep.
time coming up. Tell everyone how they can get in touch with you, how we can find you, and just how everyone can learn more about your program and what you're doing.
Yep. So I have a couple different verticals I'm doing right now. I've started my own company, just like we're discussing. I'm calling it the Strong Institute, and that is an acronym that ChatGPT worked very hard to come up with. Strategic tactics for resilience, overcoming, nurturing, and growth.
There
The
you go.
Strong Institute. So I've launched my social medias on that. So I'm on Instagram and X and LinkedIn. You can find me, and I'm working on, posting stuff and getting my message out there, and a website's coming, and I'm writing some coaching programs,
Awesome.
and ebooks are coming, and courses are coming, and of course the public speaking as well. So between that, and I'm also with the organization Apogee Strong, which is it's a movement to say the least. And there's a bunch of things going on in Apogee, but right now I'm a volunteer coach for the 12-month online program, the men's program, and next year it's the coach is actually going to be, a paid position too. So
Oh, cool.
that so you could actually you can be able to sign on the program 12-month, and I would be your one-on-one coach for the whole 12 months.
Awesome.
So that's at apogeestrong.com. Now, that's a whole nother conversation about the mission that they're on. Maybe we can chat sometime, but
Yeah.
um, it's huge on education, as it should be. It's about redistributing or relearning freedom and sovereignty for education for the whole family. So Apogee is launching schools throughout the country and the online programs, and I believe there's might be an Apogee University being worked on also. So there's a lot going on there. But Strong Institute and apogeestrong.com.
What's the Instagram handle for your Strong Institute at Strong Institute? Is that right?
Yeah, it's strong underscore institute underscore.
All right. So make
And
sure
there's an underscore at the
make
end.
sure
Yep.
you connect. If you're while David's waiting on to get his website up, make sure you send him a direct message. If you want to get in now, like you're going to hear this. One of my action items I would tell you for the folks that hear this, and if this resonates with you, don't wait for this to sit down. Reach out for David and let him craft a plan that can just help
Hmm.
elevate you and where you are. And you heard us talk about that coming home from camp vibe. Well, that's part of it. If our message speaks to you, don't wait. Reach out for him. He'll figure out something, and just how you guys can connect and the best course of action for you and David to work together. So make sure you take advantage of that because um,
Yep.
there needs there's a lot of I work for a lot of great leaders in law enforcement and some of the absolute best and some of the ones taught me more about life. I was thinking about some of those guys today, just kind of getting ready for our
Hmm.
conversation. Um, and the gut ones will keep you from, get you through your career, and the great ones will make an impact in your life that you'll remember today, and that's where you are, David.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you found
Yeah.
the project. I'm glad you found Jason Redmond. I'm glad you found um, Bedros and his message because the you're going to become this light and this beacon of hope, as I like to say, within your industry. And there needs to be more Davids where you are in your career that's helping speak to in nurturing these young guys and the old guys and just that positive, different mindset. Because you know, just like I do,
Hmm.
there's way more old Davids than
Oh
there
man.
is new Davids. So,
Yes.
man,
Well, thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate the
yeah.
opportunity, and thanks for saying all those kind words. it's definitely been a great conversation,
Yeah,
and even just what you just said brings to light more things, I can think of. So be happy to chat anytime
yeah.
also. And for anybody that wants to reach out for me too, like right now, I'm just giving, and I'm just putting my name out there, and as I write this stuff, I want to write it with people, people that I can help, and so anybody that reaches out for sure, I'd be happy to chat with.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, David. Thank you for what you
Thank
do.
you,
Thank you
Jeff.
for this conversation, but also as your role in law enforcement and keeping our community safe and spreading all that awesome dad stuff that we like to do too.
Yeah,
So, thank
absolutely.
you, my man. I look
100%.
forward to having you back on soon.
Thank you, Jeff, for sure. Later.